Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Weldie and Andrew here for the off-season June podcast. I'm just raring for the season so much. I just want to skip ahead a month. We're here for another season of Huskies hockey. A lot of coaches are moving around, which is definitely a rarity. And obviously with the transfer portal, a lot of ins and outs, and with that, the so-called number one or highly ranked Northern Michigan class is quickly depleted itself as all the I had the pronunciation here. Hold on a second. Slukinskis are now no longer. Neither of them are going to Northern Michigan, as they are now going to be in the NCHC. I had to get the pronunciation right, actually, from the Wildcats radio play-by-play guy. Actually gave me the lowdown on Twitter. So hey, a shout out to him for getting that for me. But as far as the carousel of changes, we're going to be here, Andrew, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's no entering the portal.
Not for us. Yet. No.
You're stuck with us.
Yep. If you were to enter the portal to go to another team, where would you go?
I don't like the premise of that question.
I
don't want to enter any portals.
Yeah. I think I'd want to go maybe Atlantic hockey. Maybe just to give me Brown. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to Brown. That's going to be my team. I know that's not Atlantic hockey.
Slum it from the rough and tumble Ivy League.
Oh, yeah. Well, those Ivy Leaguers never get a break. What can I say? And they're always going to be in that first USCHO poll. Under the receiving votes, there's always going to be a 1 there.
I've already read some glowing reports about how Mike Schaefer, outgoing coach at Cornell, just climbed that uphill battle for this last 30 years at scrappy old Cornell.
Oh, yeah.
And I chuckled. Atlantic Hockey Association, by the way.
Oh,
they did their name change. I teased this last show. We had like a half an hour pre-show, and we didn't even mention this. But they changed their name because they're consolidating the men's and women's. There was only the Atlantic on the men's side, and then the CHA was the women's conference. They had one commissioner for both of those leagues, but they were kind of two different names.
Two different names that they shared resources and
College Hockey America, I think it was, and then Atlantic Hockey Association. I think it was just. I think it was called just Atlantic Hockey.
Yep, it was just Atlantic Hockey.
So my thing here is, you've got the CHA, which is now Atlantic Hockey, but the CHA in the women's side have teams, none of which touch the Atlantic Ocean. It's 3 teams in Pennsylvania, Penn State, Mercyhurst, and Robert Morris, and then Lindenwood in Missouri, which isn't even in like the time zone that the Atlantic bordering states are in, and then Syracuse, which is just like a huge giant college, but they don't have a men's team. They only have a women's team. They're in upstate New York. They're by Lake Ontario, but not the Atlantic Ocean. If you're going to combine the two names,
that's
and then
where Syracuse is, huh?
It's like north.
I had no clue.
East or northwest, I guess. New York State.
God, for some reason I thought it was closer to like
by Rochester, I think.
Oh,
so
wow.
Right by the Mayo Clinic. It's always like 52.
I don't know. Syracuse was always kind of those one like college that you always hear growing up, like on Sports Center highlights, you hear Stuart Scott and Keith Overman talk about Syracuse and Wake Forest and other Old Dominion, and you're like, I have no clue where these colleges are. But it's like, fair enough. We're St. Cloud State. I know there's probably so many people are like, oh, where's that? So
I guess
anyway,
I'm just looking at the maps.
New.
Syracuse is like north central part of upstate New York, but it is close.
I still thought it'd be
close to
further
Rochester.
east. So something new.
Yeah. So those teams, none of which border the Atlantic Ocean, and then Atlantic hockey, the men's side, have teams like Air Force and a lot of those other Robert Morris and more Lake Erie kind of schools. You'd think you'd have a chance if you're going to rebrand as one conference. You'd scrap the geography moniker of those two nicknames. You think you may want to, like, because we're not all Atlantic, maybe we want to rebrand as something a little more inclusive to the rest of the country. But no, they're sticking with that Atlantic. I guess that's the trend in college sports.
Oh yeah,
conference sports names now is exactitude is not the standard, because with the Big Ten now with closer to 20 teams, the Big 12 hasn't had that amount of teams in years. Atlanta, the ACC, they've got like Notre Dame in it now, so
the Pac-12,
RIP,
yeah, doesn't exist.
So yeah, it's just. I guess that's the trend.
Speaking of pour one out, I do want to apologize for my saucy language last podcast. That was brought to you by Heaven Hill 7-year bottled in bond, who has now, because of that, been sacked and no longer appearing. Bourbon no longer appearing on this show. So
well, you got some good practice in locating a bleep button.
Yep, exactly. So I got that handy. So now it's the Old Forester Statesman is what I've got right now. I was
gonna say I saw some brown liquor there. I thought at first you said you were gonna like more wagon style, but nay.
Nope, just switching. Just we'll see what this one brings out of me. So light on the Huskies hockey news as of right now. Assistant coach change or new, with rumors flying. We'll get to that in a second. But as we said last podcast, I think the men's side is pretty well set when it comes to numbers. Everything kind of equals out there. And then women's side added a forward from St. Thomas, Abby Palmersberger, who had 8 points, 6 goals, 2 assists for St. Thomas last season, is joining the Huskies. Adolski able to get her from the transfer portal. So we got 2 people coming over from St. Thomas. I guess we'll make of that what we will. I know that St. Cloud's not going to get like the top end recruits in the scoring from the portal or anything like that. But obviously scoring was our sore point last season, where we just couldn't score goals, couldn't find the back of the net, and adding a couple players who scored 4, 5, 6 goals last season. I don't know. I just hope we take that next step here for next season. But obviously we'll see.
And you mentioned Svenja Voigt as well, who was in the portal, backed out of it, and so is returning to the Huskies. Which
one on each side, Caleb Thiessen and
right.
Voigt. So it's something in the water, something in the Mississippi that brings them back. Something in Q-Lot that they want to come back to. So.
Not sure what it is, but it's something.
Scientists are still trying to figure it out. Himlerova, congratulations to Clara Himlerova, who got drafted 15th overall in the third round to the PWHL Minnesota team, defending champions, who have had no controversy after that. But
do we have a nickname for that team yet? By the way,
we don't. I have what my opinion, what I would like it to be. If
Do
you
we
want
have
to know.
finalists? I mean, at least like the Utah
It's been
team.
radio silent.
I guess I don't understand that they went this entire season. It seems like they had a pretty good year in terms of attendance and whatnot. I find the league structure where it's all centralized and there's no individual team owners. I find that strange, and I'm not sure if that's the best for long-term
Especially
success.
when you want to force out a GM. Awkward.
Yeah.
That's odd.
Well, I don't get why they had no nicknames for this year and they had all the jerseys be the exact same. Seems like a wasted opportunity. But the Utah team is doing the same thing where they're going to announce a name but not incorporate it officially until next year. I understand there's trademarks and legal hurdles here, but I feel like this is not a problem that's ever really happened in sports. But now we just see, we can bypass a marketing opportunity for a year. It's
now,
okay.
Allegedly, there were 6 trademarks that were filed by the PWHL that were rumored to be the names, but there was so much backlash to those names that the PWHL didn't follow through with them, is the rumor.
But the plan is that this year everybody will have nicknames and jerseys and more of a unique branding.
Who can say? I would assume so.
I feel like the first year for them compared to professional women's hockey leagues in the past, this seemed to be a definite upgrade. So I'm not going to say that they're doing things the wrong way, but it keeps me at an arm's length. Like I watched like 3 minutes of that last game in the finals, but that was about it for me for watching the PWHL.
I watched quite a bit on YouTube. It's just awkward to say is the big thing is, or just call, to have them say PWHL Minnesota and PWHL Boston. It's just, I don't know. And I
Are
guess
they like contractually obligated to put the PWHL? You can't just say Minnesota.
I think so. Because every time I heard a reference, it was always that. But I don't know. It's, pick a name. Everyone's going to hate the name anyway, just because, discourse. But it's, anything unique is going to sound weird or like a minor league team, and everything that's bland and generic is going to be as such. So it's like just something to reference them. Personally, I would just say the Rain, but that's just me because they're purple rain, tap into Prince.
It would be like RAIN, not REIGN.
Correct.
Like the Kings minor league affiliate does.
Yep.
Because you could go something.
You could,
like a pun.
And you could do that, and also, purple, sign of royalty. So you could go Rain like that as well.
And if there is a marketing issue there, you could change it to Purple Rain, REIN, like the horse.
I don't even think you need the purple in there. I think you just call it the Rain, and then like the nickname could be the Purple Rain. I feel like Prince would be okay with it either way.
Yeah, I mean, he's dead, and there's no legal issues with his estate at all. So I'm sure they give that freely away.
Well, he was a big Minnesota sports fan.
That's what I say. Go REIN and have the logo be like a horse saddle, and go like lean into an equine kind of theme.
Then an equestrian theme,
right?
Your mascot could be an equestrian with that'll go really well with the Edina crowd.
They could instead of like they could redo like the helmets and have like those equestrian kind of felt helmets
there you
as
go.
well.
So
think about that.
Anyway,
put that one up the flagpole.
Himlerova is going to be used on offense, according to their coach. So, but I suppose if defense is what's needed as well, she's a hybrid, so she'll be able to do that.
And when asked for comment, Brian Adulski went, "Huh," quote unquote,
allegedly. So,
and he went, "Huh," and aggressively chewed some gum.
Oh yeah,
that's what the quote. That was the quote. The full quote.
I was just, maybe it's a little bit too early, and maybe because I just brought up, talking about the men's team and the numbers look good. I don't know. On the women's side, the blue line looks really crowded, which, assuming that everybody who was on the roster page is coming back that didn't play a game, which was Marie Moran, Sydney Bryant, and Reagan Bolger. We're bringing in Siri Urola from Finland, which I say that, and now Siri is talking to me, so that's going to be annoying for the rest of 4 years. So, I mean, but with them 4 incoming, and then have Anik, Larson, Ross, Wolf, and Bray, that feels like a lot on the blue line, which is a big change for having only 5 defensemen dress, for some games last year. And not taking the red shirt off for when we desperately needed it during, some of those mid games after Wolf went down. And then Grace Wolf, also kind of interesting, played 11 games, so right on that 30%, which is eligible for medical red shirt. So I don't know where they're on that. Technically it's 30.5 games, so 30.5%, which if 30 is like the hard and fast rule for medical red shirts, then she would obviously be over that by 0.5%. So I don't know if that's even an option or if they've looked into that. But obviously, I loved Grace Wolf.
Say that again. So we got 1/3 of the games.
30%.
30% of the games, and if you exceed that, that's essentially like you play the entire year.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's of regular season games or of your full
season I believe
schedule?
Of your full season schedule.
Well, 30% of played 36. 30% of that is 12, right? No, that's 1/3. That's 33. 33.6.
Yeah, 11,
so like
11 divided by 36 is 30.5%. 30.55.
So it is a hair of a God. So you were correct. I was confusing 30% with 1/3 for some reason. But she would have a year back, another year anyway.
Correct.
But this could be another year.
But this could be another. This essentially would be another junior year for her.
Didn't LeBlanc have to put in some sort of appeal? Because I think he may have exceeded whatever the percentage was for the men's side at that time. I thought he maybe was ahead of that by a game or two, but was able to get that redshirt year. Great for him to get that extra year. But I thought he was right on the brink and maybe had exceeded the limit for an automatic red
Maybe
shirt.
They don't count the game you're injured in since it didn't get completed by you.
Maybe that's Wolf's case too, because wasn't she injured during the game? Her 11th game?
Her 11th game.
Really, technically, if someone was injured in like the second period, they should only count that as half a game. If they do count that as half, then she would be under the 30%.
Yep.
So, we've just given her an extra year of eligibility.
I would love to give her an extra year of eligibility. So,
yeah, I mean, in terms of the numbers go, I agree it's a lot, and even from the forward side, when you're mentioning the incoming transfers and players like Svenja Voigt returning, my joke was these numbers might be edging out Grace Delmonico again.
No.
The more that you add,
don't do this to me. Don't do this.
The higher that chance that she doesn't exist actually increases.
Schrodinger's forward is Grace Delmonico.
But if you think hit the nail on the head, if Adolski wants any other way in terms of numbers, in terms of defense, he'd rather go more than less.
I mean,
based on what happened this past year. Even though we were advocating that he should just put Himlerova in the forward position. He's got enough depth in the back end. Had to take the red shirt off of Bray in the second half of the season to get that numbers game more favorable on the defensive side of the roster. But I think 9 will be fine. Again, maybe one of those red shirts. I mean, Reagan Bulger that you had mentioned, she was hurt last year. She had a full season in 22-23. So definitely would assume that she's going to be
that's
back.
right. Yeah, I forgot.
The other two, again, we're so slim pickings when it comes to roster news. When, like you had mentioned, the numbers for the women's side, literally the jersey numbers have been already announced for the men's team for the upcoming season. That's how like set in stone the roster is in comparison to the women's, which we're just kind of throwing darts at a board and trying to pin the pieces together and searching Instagram bios to see if they still say St. Cloud. This is our best guess. Hopefully this will cement itself in the next couple of months. But yeah, with how it shook out last year in terms of second half of the year being a little bit understaffed at that position, having a little bit extra insurance. Mentioned Devin Millwater had been in the portal, couldn't find a home. She's transferring to British Columbia college, so Canadian college. Wasn't able to find a D1 home in the NCAA. She's from British Columbia. That might be the story there. Like she just wanted somewhere closer to home.
Yeah.
But we'll be missing her wit and
her wit
comic timing. Yeah. If we're gonna get another season out of Dump and Chase, which we probably will.
Jump and change.
We probably will because both Chobak and Myers are coming back. So we're gonna hope that podcast, whose name I just butchered, will be back for a second season. But we'll be missing Millwater's presence on that. Which is
somebody's got to have to take up the mantle there of the comic relief. So
yes, someone will step up. But yeah, it's I'd like to see more of a set in stone, like we mentioned with Gentry. Like we think she's coming back. I mean, she obviously wasn't drafted in the PWHL draft, so she's not going there. We feel like we would have heard if she was not going to be on this roster that she's found a different home. So we assume she's back. But it's all sort of assumptions and guesses, and I wish it was a little bit more known at this point. But we'll keep you updated as we are updated. I guess that's the best we can give you.
So then this is the last year, obviously, for men's and women's side of the COVID extra year. So that's going to be all worked out.
Unless Grace Wolf gets that other year.
Yes. So,
right.
But I mean, that's also the same for the goalies, which obviously we have no issues with goalies if we have Chobak and Ahola back. I gotta workshop.
Let's breathe.
Breathe. And then Amelia Kirko, who is going to be coming in as a freshman as well. Paige Hugendam, then 4 goalies. I would imagine Hugendam maybe just a practice goalie. So, but obviously we've got a lot. We got some time. We got a couple of months, and I have to change my headline on my notes here to June podcast because I gave it, one less month here. So we got even one more month for some news to trickle out to get some of these things in stone. So, but I mean, as far as roster shakeups and what's going on, a lot of changes going on around the college hockey landscape with coaches as well. Even on the women's side, I was surprised to see Maura Cromwell from the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs went ahead and she took another job. She went back to her home area, which I'm blanking on right now.
She went to Dartmouth. I don't think she went to Dartmouth, but she's from the Northeast.
She's from the Northeast. Yeah, she's from Mansfield. Is where she was born.
It just first I thought that we were going to go with rule changes first. I'm a little off guard here. But let's talk about coaching.
Oh shoot! Yes, we were going to go rule changes.
Well, no, we've already made the transition. You can't go back now.
It was such a good transition. What's the point of having a green room if I'm just going to screw it up anyway?
I should have just went with it. I'm very sorry about that.
All right.
Well, yeah, let's talk about this. Crowell played at Colgate, but from New Hampshire, 9 years at Duluth, and pretty good run. They had the whole Shannon Miller era end a little unceremoniously there at Duluth. You remember that story from about a decade ago. So it's not like Kroll was stepping into the best situation. Now, obviously, WCHA, the fact that they have been a power in the college hockey landscape on the women's side since, the D1 national title era, last 25 years or so, was a pretty good gig. But she had some challenges, and she was able to make a pretty good run at it there, going to multiple Frozen Fours and national title game in there. And it, like some of these recent men's coaching moves, the more interesting thing, the more confusing thing I have is just the timing. Anytime you have a coaching change after the portal is closed in this era of the portal, it leads me to think there was some other factors at play here, because bolting at this time of the year, it's difficult for Dartmouth. I mean, the players that are at Dartmouth, they didn't sign up to play with Kroll. Not saying that Kroll's a bad coach, quite the opposite. But whenever you have a coaching change, there's players on both ends of that transaction, the team that she leaves and the team that she's going to, that are going to be affected by that, which then could lead to further portaling, because that's the main loophole in the portal, is that, yes, it does close May 15th, around that time period, but it can open for a player whose coach either leaves or if there was some aid cutting. And so it throws things into question, into a questionable area, recruiting. You got to imagine some of Kroll's recruits to Duluth are going to follow her, but there's going to be some that said, hey, I'm a Duluth area kid. I don't really want to go up to New Hampshire. That's not what I was really signing up for when I committed to Kroll. So it's going to affect Duluth and Dartmouth. I think it's a good move for Dartmouth. I mean, it's a tough league there, and they're not among the ECAC class of contenders at this point, but with a coach like Kroll, that certainly can change. We also saw what's his name, Greg Fargo, I think it is. He was the Colgate coach, who had a great run there. He bolted for the PWHL for their New York team, and probably the first kind of big ripple effect of coaches going from NCAA to the PWHL. It's a good get for them, but also another big effect for the ECAC, Colgate in particular, and just college hockey as a whole, because Colgate's been real good for the last several years, and that creates a vacancy and some question marks in Colgate as well. So perhaps with that being in flux, Dartmouth's a team that can grow into a competitor of their own. It's not like Colgate was a competitor up until the last 5 or 6 years when Fargo took that team to national prominence. So it certainly can happen. I wouldn't doubt that she has the ability to build Dartmouth into a contender. But from the WCHA side of things too, haven't heard any news about a replacement yet at Duluth, but this throws like fourth place for the Huskies, which is kind of like what we're expecting as like a realistic goal. Puts that, from Huskies perspective, I think that's good news. If anything, this could help shrink that gap between fourth and fifth, which I don't think is very large to begin with. But if this impacts Duluth in terms of maybe losing a couple of recruits or losing some more players to the portal, just the fact that they just don't have anybody there yet, advantage, slight as it may be, to the Huskies. So I'm not against this in that regard, in the
Yeah.
very selfish St. Cloud aspect of things.
Yeah, very much so. The thing was, now we haven't seen any, at least I haven't heard of any news of any portal action from this fallout with Mara taking the job out east. And I think, because I kind of brought this up to Sydney Wolf from the Rink Live. I DM'd her and just kind of asked her about situations like this, about the reopening of the portal and things like that. And she just kind of brought up too about a numbers game when, so many lineups are essentially set for next year. That makes it really hard even to think about entering the portal or trying to kind of gain some traction with that when there might not be a place for you anywhere else. So you kind of see how this year goes, and then possibly next year go ahead and make that change if things aren't going the way that you signed up for when you were originally committed to the program. Like you said, that's the timing aspect. Now I find that bizarre that this happened, on the women's side, that nothing really changed here, but a little bit different with Grant Patolny leaving for the Northern Michigan, and then even more recruits kind of dropped off from Northern Michigan and ended up switching at this late stage. So it's just kind of an interesting dynamic that Western Michigan was able to find spots for the recruits even at this stage of the game, so to speak.
Yeah, it's become a strength of Western, is plucking recruits from late recruits who went in the portal after a coaching change, because that's how they got Alex Bump last year.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Vermont commit, and then Vermont fired their coach probably around this time. It was a late one that was more off ice misconduct related than, in this Patolny case, bolting for a pro job. We think that's been weird too. Like, said that, oh, he's going to take that Scranton Wilkes-Barre position, AHL job with Penguins, but then somebody else who's not named Grant Patolny got that job. So now I don't know where he's going to go. Probably the AHL. It's what the insiders are telling me, but we'll see where that lands. But that in and of itself, like him just leaving and not announcing in that same press conference or same press release where he's going, he's just going to leave, is strange. The whole conversation about, well, pump the brakes on 13 Northern Michigan players in the portal because they got this great recruiting class coming in. It's this numbers game. And Patolny was at the front lines of spinning that narrative. Well, so much good you did there, because then he just backed out of that whole commitment 2 months later. The timing with this just makes me think something perhaps else was up. I don't exactly get it. But like you said, this opens up with the men's side. Probably it's reasonable to think that the portal action might be more heavy on the men's side, just because there's twice as many teams.
That's true.
In college hockey than in the women's side. And that just might naturally answer the question of the more movement.
Yeah, I was probably overthinking that aspect of it. You're probably right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be some filtering in and out of that. Although I think there's like a 30-day window to do that. And I'm not sure exactly the date that Kroll made that announcement, but we might be close to that 30 days at this point. So, but just like I said, it might be there's twice as many positions open in the men's side than there is women's side, and making an announcement this late might have just more limited prospects for players, and we're thinking about the portal on the women's side. But yeah, the Northern Michigan news was definitely out of the blue, and didn't take me a little too long to text you and said, well, maybe we should be worried about Dave Shayak about this, because we haven't heard that he's been asked for an interview or has interviewed, but Northern Michigan alum, he was the captain on their 91 national title winning team. Anytime you have a coaching vacancy, think of alums. If there's a prominent alum in the coaching community, circle that name. It's not going to necessarily mean they're going to get the job, but like our favorite insider McMahon seems to say, he's the front runner, seemingly on that basis alone, the fact that he's got coaching experience and he's a Northern Michigan alum. So it definitely would not shock me. McMahon mentioned that when they did hire Patelny, which is 2017, that Shayak was a finalist at that time as well. So he's clearly familiar with the area and the program. And Rick Comley, who's the interim coach, he's not going to coach a game. He's close to 80, but he was the head coach of that 91 team and is their current AD. So, I mean, Comley knows who's
Get him behind the bench. Let's do it.
I would wonder who, like Jerry York probably had to be close to 77, which is what Comley is now. Yeah, he probably wouldn't be. I mean, Gagliardi was 90 when he finally stepped down at St. John's. Like, you could tack on to he's got to be top 5 in all-time wins, Comley, because he was a coach for 30 some years, won a national title with Michigan State after he moved on from Northern as well. So a legend in his own right, but he's certainly familiar with Shayak, the player and the coach. I mean, Shayak's been a head coach, obviously with Anchorage, and then decent run there with Western Michigan as their assistant. Now been basically Larson's number 2 here for the last 3 or 4 years. So just keep an eye on that, and that would definitely impact St. Cloud.
He is 5th on the list of all-time wins with 783.
York number 1. We see
York
if I can
one.
get the other 4 here.
Let's do
York's number 1. Ron Mason,
number 2.
I'm gonna. Are these all recent, or we're talking like some from the Stone Age?
No, these are both recent. They're big names. And
Lucia?
No. Lucia is 8th.
Oh, Jack Parker.
Jack Parker is 3.
Berenson.
Berenson is 4. There you go.
Yeah, I was kind of overthinking it there for a little bit, but.
Yep. Then Comley at 5, number 6.
Wozdecki?
Interesting. Hold on a second. Are they? They must be counting Division 3 as well. Bob Peters.
Okay. They would be, or D2.
Or I'm sorry, yeah.
There were all 3 of those. There were D3, D2, and D1. Yeah, put an asterisk on that one.
But yeah, get him out of here. Well, especially because, Mike McShane is number 7 and the coach of Norwich from 95 to 2018.
Where are you finding what's your source here?
Searched on Wikipedia.
Okay. I was going to say, if you're going to count D3, then I bet Wozdecki's up there in top 10 because he was at River Falls, won a couple of national titles with them before he was D1 coach.
He's number 19 on the list.
Is that all the way that far down? Jeff Sauer, is he up there?
Number 11.
You got to think like Woog. You got to just think of guys like longevity guys. But I guess Woog was only there for 15 years. So maybe he probably wouldn't be on there.
Nope. Woog's not on the list here.
All right, we're done with this game.
I just one. Who is the most active? And I'm not gonna count. Correct. Now I'm not gonna count Tim Coughlin from St. Norbert, but yes,
we're not counting
Rand Pecknold on 12.
Which they're probably counting some non D1 numbers from him because he's been there for 30 years, but maybe 10 of those were before the time that they were D1.
And then Rick Gotkin
from
Mercyhurst.
Yeah, I got like Bob Daniels is probably up there with Ferris because he's been there for 35 years. it's again just the longevity guys. Like Gotkins made like 2 tournaments, and one of them he lost like 9-3, I think, to the Gophers. But yet he's going to be on that list because he's just been there since like 87 or something. But that's a good sidetrack. But I hesitate to say use the CHN list because that's more definitive in this. But I don't want to give Bowden a free plug with his almanac there. So I guess we're gonna defer to the Wikipedia list now.
Number 49 on the list, Craig Dahl. Bethel, River Falls, and St. Cloud State.
Is Motzko on that list?
Yeah, he is. Where was Motzko? Uh, 47.
It's right ahead.
Right ahead of Craig Dahl and Dean Blaze. Is that 40 tied with Craig Dahl? Dean Blaze and Craig Dahl tied.
They have the same amount.
Yeah.
Oh, again, they're probably counting some of Dahl's D3.
Oh yeah, they're counting Bethel and River Falls. So.
Okay.
But.
All right, we're
off track.
Northern Michigan.
Nate Lehman though is 3 wins away from 400.
Okay, well,
so we're on 400 watch.
We'll get a 400 watch for Lehman coming up this year. Are they counting his World Juniors wins?
They are not. This is just college hockey. Union and Providence.
So yeah, Northern Michigan, keep an eye on Shayak. If that's the move, which not necessarily the move. If he's the number one candidate, that probably means he's the most expensive candidate for Northern Michigan, and maybe Northern Michigan's not in a financial state that they can afford the most expensive coach. They might go with a 36-year-old recent alum. So it's not. There's more people in the world than Dave Shayak, but keep an eye on that because if he does make that move, that's a vacuum in St. Cloud, and watch recruits from St. Cloud as well because it's not like he doesn't have a hand in these recruits that St. Cloud's been bringing in, especially that Western Canada area, kind of his hotbed. So, I didn't think that we were in danger of losing a member of the coaching staff, but this throws that into definite doubt.
Yeah, and I don't know about like waiting in the wings or thinking about who would kind of fill that. Just kind of hearing his name float out there, and again the timing aspect of it, or if it's just juggling around again with where we had Clark Custer and moving around, maybe you get upgraded from video now to being on the bench and put a new video guy in. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see kind of over the next month or so. I would assume they would like to make some kind of announcement soon about any type of movement for it. So it'll be interesting position that St. Cloud is in, where you would assume Shayak would want that position and attempt to go for it. And if he was highly considered last time, I would imagine would be highly considered this time. So if you were to put a prop bet on it, do you think Shayak stays or goes, knowing what you know now?
Knowing nothing else, which means the fact that Northern Michigan doesn't seem to have anyone else lined up as far as interviews go. Like, I haven't heard any other name other than Shayak. I put him as the odds-on favorite to get the job. That's not me calling the fact that he's predicting that he's going to take the job, but I'd say he's got to be the leader in the clubhouse.
Yep. If I were a betting man, I would say that he's the head coach of Northern Michigan this next season. I think he's not going to be in the Cardinal and Black anymore.
It's a definite possibility. And if that happens, it's going to be a shame because you're probably going to be losing some recruits. Probably not anyone that's already on roster. The ones that we've already assigned the jersey numbers to. That is probably going to be untouched. But as far as future prospects, if that does happen, I would be shocked if the number of players who bolt from the recruits standpoint is 0. Like, I would be shocked if that's not at least 1. So, knock on wood, but all the power to Shayak. Obviously, he's capable of running a program. He did good enough at Anchorage that anybody else could have done there, and deserving of a job with a little bit more resources, and one where he'd kind of be coming home in a sense to his alma mater. I think if he gets offered the job, I would not hold it against him if he said yes. Now,
exactly.
From his perspective, though, as well, how this might keep him at St. Cloud, if anything does, is that's a challenging job with that, with the conference that they're in, the resource disadvantage in comparison to other conferences. I mean, I think that Potulny got a fair amount of credit for the job he did. I mean, I always thought he was more of a name than a proven product as a coach. I mean, keep this in mind. And if he's going to take an AHL job, which, I mean, the timing, I guess, is understandable when you factor in if he's going to go to the AHL. The AHL playoffs, like the NHL, they're in their finals now. So this is time where AHL teams are making a run and their coaches are getting promoted, like the Sharks. We kind of called this. So, like, if there were 7 coaching vacancies, 6 would go to retreads and 1 would be a newcomer. It's exactly what happened, because it's Lindy Ruff and Keefe went from the Devils from the Leafs to the Devils. Berube goes to the Leafs. All retreads except for the Sharks hired this Warshawski, I think is his name, who is a minor league coach. And so you're going to get some shuffling there, like AHL head coaches being promoted to assistant jobs at the NHL, whatnot. So I guess the timing isn't shocking if you're going to go from college to an AHL job. We'll see exactly where Potulny lands, but it's not like, I mean, never made the tournament at Northern in 7 or 8 years. He made their title game 3 separate times, but weren't able to win in either of those 3 occasions, one of which was a home game that they had. And do you know how many, if he's got pro coaching aspirations in his future, seeing if he proved that at the NCAA level, do you know how many Northern Michigan players that he coached at Northern have appeared in the NHL?
How many?
You got a number?
0.
Correct.
Yeah.
None. And again, part of that's the CCHA or the old WCHA, where it's an older league that's not on the par with leagues like the NCHC or the Big Ten or Hockey East. Your prospects for recruiting and such are limited. It's definitely one of those leagues where you got to coach them up. Even a guy like Hastings wasn't able to crank out a pro prospect machine in his run there at Mankato. So not to say that it can't be done. It's just that he really didn't prove it, albeit at a place that definitely has its challenges. And so, yeah, I don't, if you have any comment on that aspect of it, this is a natural progression of Grant Potulny as a great coach graduating into the pros.
I always assumed that, like you said about looking at alma maters or alums for the next job, the general consensus was Potulny was just waiting for Motzko to be done at Minnesota. Then it was going to be Potulny's job.
Well, you thought that when he went to Northern, the surprising thing there was, you think he'd just wait around until Lucia was done, and then he would just get the job once Lucia was done.
Yep.
Then when he took that job, it's like, oh, that'll be good for him. He'll get like a year or 2 there, get some experience. So when the Gophers hire him, he'll have head coaching experience. But then he just stayed there. And never really broke through. Again, he was there 7 seasons. It's not like he was. Yeah. It was just that's almost 2 full recruiting classes. So it's not like we don't have some data to back up his coaching record. But it's an unusual timing, and as you mentioned, the ripple effect has already affected some of these high-end recruits that Patelny had lined up, and a couple of them going to Western Michigan, which Western Michigan in itself, with Furschweiler there, it's not a death knell for these late coaching changes to scramble your program because of that. Because Furschweiler is a product of that himself. Murray stepped aside from that job, I think, in August of 21. It was later than it is today. We're recording on June 20th. It was either in July or August that Murray stepped away, and they hired Furschweiler. Now, in that case, perhaps Furschweiler was always the coach in waiting. He was the main assistant there for years. Whereas, like, Northern's got to go outside the current program because, like, their assistant coaches both bolted as well. So someone's going to be taking that job that's not on the current staff. I mean, unless Comley wants to make a run at it as a septuagenarian behind the bench, which I clearly do not think is going to happen. Although I'd love to see it. But so they're going to be make an outside hire, and that's a little bit different than what Western had to do, and in a similar aspect, but even more, I think, baffling, the news of Mike Schaefer's retirement at Cornell, paired with Casey Jones resigning from Clarkson to take the assistant job at Cornell and be their coach in waiting starting next year. Schaefer's going to have one more year, a little victory lap around the ECAC, and Jones will assume that job starting in 2025, which results in Clarkson looking around and saying, what just happened? And this is more puzzling to me because this is clearly an orchestrated move. Why didn't you do this in April? Perhaps, like, seeing it fourth dimensional chess kind of aspect, this really kind of, if anything, it kind of screws Clarkson. So if you're Cornell and saying, well, we can secure our future and then also kind of kick Clarkson down in the same process by
tinfoil hat, I love it,
delaying their progress, if any. Why not? Because we'll just delay the move until after the portal closes. So then they'll have to scramble to find a coach, and it kind of throws their program into a little bit of flux. And so again, this has clearly been planned for a while. Jones, a longtime assistant at Cornell, alum at Cornell. So, I mean, it's no real shock that he's going to take the job, but just the way that it happens is just strange when it comes to the timing. And Casey Jones riding that train high on cocaine. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed when you move to Cornell.
Trouble ahead, trouble behind. I was gonna ask, like, when you hear Casey Jones, what do you think of? Because I think
of the Grateful Dead.
You think of the Grateful Dead. I think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because, like, the whole time I was thinking of cricket. You gotta know what a crumpet is to understand cricket. Which there's
a reference.
Which ironically was actually said by Raphael, not Casey Jones, but it was in reference to Casey Jones. I actually made a reference to that movie a couple days ago. One of my favorite lines is when, the cab driver hits Raphael and the cabbie goes, sort of looked like a big turtle in a trench coat. You going to LaGuardia, right? It's just this normal thing that happens in New York. I don't know. Anyway.
And it's fitting because this is New York. This is all New York. Clarkson to Cornell. Exactly. It's all in that Syracuse area, upstate New York. But
anyway, Casey Jones was so cool in the original Turtles movie, which I haven't seen for a long time, which I can't imagine is still good, but maybe
check it out.
Yeah,
see if it holds up.
I'll do a movie review.
Yeah, do that. But thoughts on this, which also could, I mean, we might not be done talking midsummer coaching moves. We got 3 of them we just talked about with Kroll and Patolny and this Schaefer / Jones move. We might not be done because our favorite insider, I mean, I pay for the newsletter, so I might as well get my milk out of it.
Yep.
But McMahon's reporting that perhaps the number 1 candidate to take Clarkson job would be this Josh Hogg. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. He was hired from Clarkson to take the Union job a couple years ago. Well, now it might be that he could replace Jones at Clarkson, which would then create another opening at Union, kind of like playing whack-a-mole here. And so we might not even be done with coaching moves and the trickle effect. So keep a pin in that. And Mike Schaefer, too. Again, we've got one more season to play my favorite drinking game when listening to the CHN podcast.
Ride the bus. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Went back to college again.
Whenever Woden drops, I've known Mike Schaefer since 1988. Whenever he says that phrase in particular, you got to drink. And then he'll throw in, you got to drink 2 shots if he brings in, that's how I know Don Vaughn as well, the old Colgate coach. Any Don Vaughn mention in the same paragraph as Mike Schaefer, you got to drink twice, and then you got to double all your intake if he says either Schaefer or Donnie Vaughn. You got to double all of your intake at that point. You'll be hammered at any point. And this year, because it's the last year, and Vaughn retired last year, so he's got one more year.
Oh, he needs a new
with
crutch.
His buddy Shave, and it's going to be off the charts. He would drop those names like when Clarkson or when Cornell wasn't even playing. It'd just be out of the blue. And so tune in sometime this year because you're bound to get hammered playing the Woden drinking game on the CHN podcast. So I'll be missing that the year. Well, I probably won't because it'll probably be like 10 years after Schaefer's been done. He'll still be dropping.
He'll still drop it. Oh yeah.
But yeah, I've made my, I wouldn't call it contempt for Schaefer, but just I find him extremely unpleasant. And I'm just always shocked at just the tongue bath that the college hockey media gives him. He's a interesting cat, say that. And I guess the game's going to be missing a real charmer when he's gone. So there's that story. And I don't know if you have any commentary on that.
I don't know if I can top that. I guess I wasn't aware of the Woden drinking game. My rules probably would have been a little bit different, but
I'm sure there's a lot of different variants of a Woden game. This is one of the better ones.
I feel like this is like mine would be like, oh, take a drink, take a sip, take a what. But if you're getting to do this, take shots and whatnot, yeah, I'm flatlining by about 45 minutes into that podcast. So just dropping that down. Quickly, just we'll probably talk more about the NHL draft as it happens, but some prospects that the Huskies do have possibly in the hearing their name called, Austin Bernavec and Colin Ralph. Those 2 are prospects as well as eligibility for Nolan Road, Hawk Huff, Tanner Hendricks, and also a newcomer coming in, Gavin Thorson. Wouldn't imagine he is going to, because he's 5'8", and NHL will probably look at that as a big strike against him. But so we got a couple of prospects here that are looking to hear their name called in a couple of weeks. And we will obviously have more news in the July podcast when that rolls out.
Yeah, excited for that. We did have a couple of other coaching changes. If you wanted to go over those briefly, we did touch on a couple of weeks ago, maybe the last show, 2 shows ago, the Miami coaching move, because that's relevant for the conference. Anthony Arene. I saw that Bergeron took a scouting job, I think, with the NHL, the Sabres. I thought maybe he might pop up as like an assistant somewhere, but it's like he's been watching the game from the stands, at least for the foreseeable future. Ben Sire going from Cornell, I guess he took his name out of the hat for the Cornell position before that even opened. He takes the job at Princeton. The 3 that I'd like to mention, I thought these were all pretty good hires at colleges that I wouldn't necessarily expect to make kind of splashy hires.
Even teased this at the beginning of the show, and I totally forgot there were so many different coaching changes.
Yeah, we got 7. I mean,
Jeez.
7 so far, and that's not counting a potential 8th, like if that Hoagie from Union takes the Clarkson job. That's a lot. So we got Stonehill making a hire.
How many teams are in college hockey now? 64? 4?
Yeah, we're not adding anybody this year, are we? I don't think so.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're at 64 now.
Okay, so we're looking at what, like 12, 14% of college hockey teams having new coaches.
Math again.
You know what? Skip that. I'll edit that out somewhere in there.
Almost like exactly an 1/8.
Yeah.
Well, 12.5%. If the Union guy goes to Clark. But yeah, we got Stonehill hiring David Berard, who again, so their coach retires, LOL, after the worst season in
Are you LOLing at the coach or at the retires? Like
at the
what?
Retired. Like,
okay, all right.
That's how you're going to give the job up.
I was LOLing at coach, as that's what he was doing.
You could do that. That actually works.
I don't think it was coaching.
Well.
I think he was standing on the bench and just letting the lines roll and just shrugging.
So that winning 1 game, was it? I wouldn't thought that I would have assumed that whoever they did hire was not going to be someone that I would have heard of, like Ben Sire, who was the Princeton coach I just mentioned. Like, hey, not really familiar with him. Someone like that, a name that I go, oh, that's a name that I might be mispronouncing. That's who I thought they would hire. But Berard is actually someone I had heard of because he coached Holy Cross for a little bit. And he's been an assistant out east at a couple of different schools. And so
that should be the tagline of this podcast is, oh, that's a name I might mispronounce.
Yeah. Yep. But hey, he's a guy and he's got some experience. And from his perspective, if you win 2 games, you've doubled the input, you've doubled the win total. So nowhere to go but up.
There we go.
And you can't do any worse than David Borges did. So, but again, a guy that I was somewhat I just at least knew the name, surprised by that. Bowling Green rehires, I guess, Dennis Williams. He had briefly coached them. If you remember 2010, 2009, this was the time when Bowling Green was on the chopping block, very close to cutting their hockey program. Williams took a job as on the interim basis around that time. He was just there for 1 year. Made it quite a name for himself in the junior ranks, coaching the WHL for a number of years. He was the Team Canada World Junior coach 2 years ago. And Bowling Green, you mentioned, so he takes over 10, 15 years ago when the team was sort of in doubt as a program existentially. Now he takes over for a Bowling Green program that's kind of had a different kind of mess in the last couple of years. He had the Austin Swankler saga, which led to Ty Eigner being suspended, and then they were just a terrible team, and they ended up firing him. A program that, for a while, at least like when Bergeron took them to the tournament, kind of like, hey, on their way up, and kind of top half of the CCHA team there for a bit, really kind of fallen from any sort of height that would ascribe a team of Bowling Green stature. But a guy like Williams, who I think has a pretty good resume and a depth recruiter in terms of from a junior standpoint, and a guy that's mostly made his name in Canadian hockey, I'm surprised that he would accept Bowling Green's call and take that job for a second time. And so I thought that was a decent hire for them. And then Lindenwood hiring Bill Muckalt, who's a guy that, if we ever can find the archives from the first run of this show, we had his name, we threw his name out there because that's from Berenson. We mentioned him already in the show. When he retired at Michigan, they ended up hiring Mel Pearson. Muckalt was a guy that I was sort of stumping for. Michigan alum, won a national title with Berenson in the 90s. May have been on both of those teams, both of those national title winning teams. But then it was Pearson's assistant for a while at Tech, and then went out to the USHL for a bit. I think he was also the Tri-City coach for a while, which is also where that Noreen that Miami hired was at. Seemed like a coaching factory there they got going in was it Hastings, Nebraska? I think we figured that out, whatever the Tri-Cities are. But Lindenwood goes and hires him, which again, I wouldn't have expected Lindenwood to get a name even of that stature. Now, Muckle doesn't have head coaching experience at the college level, but as I mentioned, lots of time as a top assistant for a number of coaches who've got a good pedigree. And I think with Lindenwood their big challenge is finding a conference, I think. And because of that, the limbo of them being an independent and being a pretty, bad team for the run that they've been at D1, for them to hire a guy who I think's got a good future, that might not be a guy that if he can have 4 or 5 good years there, put him into a conference, like this could be a good springboard for him to go on to a sexier job. But I think that's a very good hire from Lindenwood as well. So, I mean, those 3 teams, like I said, I wouldn't have expected the kinds of names that they were able to land, but they're all kind of interesting prospects in their own right, especially Muckalt. He's a guy that I've had a interest in. I think he's a good hire for Lindenwood. And if this ends with them at least like finding a home, now that the CCHA is down a member, with the Tommies bolting to the NCHC, well, maybe that's where their sights are set now. And if Muckalt can improve their stature to the point where the CCHA is kind of interested in taking them on, I think that'd be a win for college hockey as a whole. So I don't know if you have any commentary on the other coaching moves that I just recapped.
No, like I said, you were on top of that a lot more than I was. So no, I'm happy that you were able to, have that and quite the opinion. And yeah, when you said about Muckle too, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. We did talk about, all that in Michigan. He was I don't know, college hockey does this weird thing where it's like you're the assistant head coach, but you're the associate head coach, which I guess is maybe like a little bit higher. I don't know.
I'm not sure it's this title inflation.
Yeah.
Different schools might have the assistant be the top assistant, where the associate head coach is the top assistant in another school. Who really can tell? It's kind of like the general manager versus president of hockey operations. General manager used to be the number 1 front office title, but now like GM is like 3rd or 4th at some teams.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they've got other poobahs ahead of them. But yeah, I remember I said we want Muckall at Michigan because I wanted Pearson to stay at Tech. because it's better for Tech to have a guy like Pearson than have him go to Michigan. Well, clearly not how it.
And then everything went just perfect for Pearson. So look what happened there.
What he's up to.
And also Muckle, will probably get plenty of time playing in Michigan anyway if Western Michigan keeps putting them on the schedule 6 times a year. So
that's right. Do we have their non-conference schedule next year yet?
I don't know if we do.
But as we know, we've got 4 games with Lindenwood somewhere. We've got those 4 games. So
I would imagine they got to do the return trip as well. So
and then Western also played at the regional there, so they're like roommates
right?
to Lindenwood at that Blues practice facility.
They're gonna have their own wing, coming up soon.
Of their own dressing rooms.
Yep, exactly. So. Rule changes. So rule change year, or every 2 years, rule change year. I've got a list of them that mostly I understand. One I don't get. I think I get. I don't know if I do.
No, we don't. Neither of us get it.
But do you want me to go one by one? Do you want me to rattle them off?
Let's do it.
Just one by one.
One by one.
Okay, perfect. Kind of the one I think is getting the most headlines is video reviews can now downgrade a penalty. Before, if there was a major call on the ice and then they would review it, it would either be a major call or nothing. But basically now they can kind of change it and they have a little bit more leeway, because what we need is more leeway when it comes to reviews. So now, basically if it's a major call to the major on the ice, they go to review it and turns out it is not a penalty or it should be downgraded to a minor. Referees have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to that.
Because, just to clarify, because I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, the rule was, in order to review it, you needed to call. Could you have called a minor penalty and then upgraded it? I think that's how the rule was, but you couldn't downgrade it. It
Correct.
had to be at least a minor. And It was, because I'm thinking it was either that or it had to be a major and you could downgrade it to a minor. But I think it was the first example where you had to call at least a minor and then you could look at it and upgrade it to a major. Now it seems like you can call it whatever on the ice, including nothing, and then come up with either a minor or a major. Is that an incorrect reading? Do you have to call a penalty to then look at it? Or can you just look at it and then come out of the box and say, well, we think it's a minor?
I think that's the case. When using video replay, officials will have the ability to review a major... No, maybe not. Review a major penalty and downgrade it to a minor penalty or no penalty. Officials can add a major penalty during review, for example, game misconduct or disqualification. So maybe
all right. We'll find out in practice how this is going to turn out. We might have
Jim Rich
I might be
have
more
a field
confused.
day.
Yeah. If we're confused, I can't imagine what the Fox 9 crew will take this. But let's just boil it down to its essence. What this generally will result in is more reviews, right?
Yes.
Which our official take on this podcast is
and longer, because now the
longer.
Conversations will be, well, maybe we could do this as a minor instead of a major, when before that wasn't even an option.
Yeah, my paleo take on reviews is get rid of all of them. It's the extreme that I know will never be implemented, but I still will stake my claim on that. I'll die on that hill. No reviews of anything. Make a call on the ice. If it's the first step in accepting that is to accept the fact that there's going to be wrong calls. There's going to be incorrect calls.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be willing to accept that. And if you're fine with that, then what I'm trading off in that scenario is the fact that it's just a better game flow. We don't have 5 to 10 minute stoppages, sometimes 5 to 10 minute stoppages several times a game, struggle to get into a flow of things. And a lot of times the 5 and 10 minute reviews can come out with head scratching results of its own. I don't even think that review necessarily gets it right, even a majority of the time. So get rid of all reviews. And this sounds like it just is more review and more discretion on how to decide calls based on reviews. And in that sense, I'm against it. But if you're saying this was the biggest talker among them, what's the conversation been? Like, this is a good thing?
Well, I think that when I looked at least on the NCAA website, this was like the biggest change, is what they say. It got the most quotes, which I do find a little bit interesting. Officials will have all options available for hitting from behind infractions, minor, major, or major in a game misconduct or disqualification.
So if I'm going to put myself in the shoes of someone that was for reviews, which I probably would think is the majority opinion, it seems like whenever we get these tweaks when it comes to reviews or challenges, it seems like, from my perspective, these changes are maybe not applauded, but given a thumbs up by those who are in favor of reviews. But then when we actually go and practice, it turns out to not be as cool as we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if this is going to be another one of those situations where, yes, giving them more latitude and the more leeway and opening up possibilities for referees to make creative calls, that has a track record of backfiring.
Yeah.
And we've got another review-based rule change coming up. This is the head scratcher. I don't know if we want to pin that and get back to it, maybe to end the segment on that. But
no, go ahead.
Well, because you have to read it. We read it like 5 times aloud, word for word, before the show, and we still don't know what the hell it is. So give it to me for a 6th time.
All right. This happens to be with game-winning goals in overtime. So as the rule proposal goes, it's in postseason games that use a video replay official, it is optional to clear game-winning goals in overtime. If a review is needed, the on-ice officials will make the final determination. Straight from the NCAA website.
That is verbatim.
Clear as mud. So in postseason games that use a replay official, which will be all of them in the NCHCs, I'm not going to talk for other conferences. It is optional to clear game-winning goals in overtime. And so what I originally thought this was eliminating essentially all goals will be reviewed in overtime to eliminate the dumb challenge that you have just to throw out there at the end.
Yes, and I think that's...
Although it was great to see North Dakota fans cheering 2 years ago thinking that was offsides. When I was in the building, I was like, that's clearly the wrong blue line. Like, because they showed the wrong clip on the scoreboard.
So North Dakota fans all of a sudden citing the 2-line pass rule. Yes, I thought that was... I agree, that's where I thought this was going. But the way this is worded... I can't make any sense of it because, as you mentioned, the word optional
to clear game-winning goals. Like, I don't know what the
I can. Okay, so clear, like authorize or verify. Use like the thesaurus brain. I think I can square that circle.
See, when I say
but
clear,
the optional
is
part,
like clear, it's good, like it's waived. That's where it's like clear.
I guess
it's
clear
like clear
can
it
kind
out.
of mean both, like
exactly.
Erase or verify.
So,
but then the optional part of it, that's what gets me. Because as you say, this is a rule book. Rule books are not intended to have open-ended questions. Rule books are supposed to dictate what you're supposed to do at specific scenarios of gameplay. So tell me what's optional is. The word optional is context dependent.
Yeah.
What are the options they have, and why is it optional? Which are the circumstances that would enable you clearing a review, and which are the situations that would not enable you to clear a review? Then, furthermore, this on-ice video official business then is further gummed up by the last sentence there, where it says, if it's needed, then the on-ice officials have the final say. Like, this whole rule needs to go to English class, first of all. But then it also needs to go to common sense class, because I don't think even the spirit of this, I don't even know what they're trying to get at.
Yeah, it's this one I don't understand by any means. So.
And if it is just, we've got to boil it to its essence, it means more reviews, then I'm not for it. But I'm more anti the grammar of this one than anything, any substance based aspect of this one.
Yeah, my 10th grade teacher would take a red pen all over this. So
if any of you 7 listeners out there have any insight to what this means, please,
especially our one Argentinian listener. So if you're downloading this and please,
have you been seeing the metrics or the
yes,
analytics?
The analytics.
We've got,
yep.
All right, our spam is we've got a spam follower.
Exactly.
We're global.
Yep.
Hey.
Or someone's using a VPN for Argentina probably gets
Eagle. They're bypassing the paywall.
Yeah, exactly.
Smart. Very smart.
It's a good idea. Next one, kind of a reminder. The committee voted to remove, quote, deliberately directed from the hand pass rule to more closely align with the National Hockey League. I don't know, hand pass, whatever. I guess before hand pass, if it wasn't deliberately directed, could have been waved off. Or I guess if it touched the glove and then it went, but I always saw those called anyway, so maybe that's why they're just changing.
And they've like cracked down on hand passes in years past, because it used to be you could hand pass in your own zone, but now you can't even do that. You can't hand pass anywhere on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been cracking down on hand passes more in recent years, which I don't have a ton of hot takes on.
I never thought it was an epidemic, but I guess I do like it that not doing it in your defensive zone. So like if you're going to get rid of it, like just get rid of it altogether. And that's consistency no matter what zone you're in. Wasn't there a hand pass challenge in the playoffs against Western that St. Cloud challenged a Western goal and they waved it off because of a hand pass? And I at least thought it was a ridiculous call. I think it was either the first or the second playoff game. Yes.
If I'm remembering correctly, I thought it was a hand pass that they called.
Yes, it was. The thing was that it wasn't a ridiculous call. Like, it was a hand pass, but it wasn't on the play that went to the goal.
That's right.
Like,
it was
a
hand
hand
against
pass.
The boards.
It was a
hand
pass.
Like keeping it in the zone.
It was a hand pass that happened, and then Western Michigan kept the puck or kept the play going for like 30 seconds and then ended up scoring.
But not based on that direct play.
But it wasn't, exactly. Yeah. So, that's what it was. I
still don't like that.
Exactly. It's like you had 37 seconds and you shouldn't turn over a goal for a technicality, even though that was in St. Cloud's favor. Yeah, not a favor of that. All right. A rule proposal dealing with continuous play was also approved. Now, this one I think is going to be really fun if it happens, especially if it happens in Grand Forks and against North Dakota, because there'll be riots in the streets. Basically, continuous play. If the referee signals a stoppage of play because they lost sight of the puck, but in the immediate and continuous action, the puck enters the goal, the officials will be allowed to award the goal. Previously, blowing the whistle took away that option. The play was dead right away. Basically, if the official loses sight of the puck, but it's sitting right on the crease, and right after the whistle, someone pops into the goal, and the blowing of the whistle, it was bang. Like basically, the blowing of the whistle, it wouldn't have. Like the goalie wouldn't have had time. Like the goalie didn't decide, okay, I'm not going to go for that puck now. Like he wouldn't have got there anyway, type of situation. So, I do think this is going to cause a lot of, if it does happen throughout the season, I think it's going to cause a lot of anger for the fans that the whistle blew and what's continuous action. I can see some of that, but overall I do like this rule change because it's one of those things. It's like, it wouldn't change whether the whistle like changing the outcome of the game like that because the ref was in kind of a position where they lost sight of the puck. I feel taking away a goal with that on it. Again, that would be a technicality that the whistle blew.
If you're going to do that
in a continuous play,
you're going to be reviewing these goals. It's hard to know when was the whistle blown when you're looking at a review. A lot of times you don't have the sound.
I assume they do.
Sure. I'm sure that, like you, I think if this, again, we're trying to boil it down to its essence, this probably means there's going to be more goals scored with this rule change. You're removing one minor rule from the rule book that would take goals away.
Yes.
Again, this might result in 3 more goals in college hockey scored as a total because of this rule. But if that's the result, I'm for it. But you're still going to run into, like, if a puck is covered or if it's not visible, it's kind of like that other Western Michigan game, the goal of the year candidate one, where it's where's the puck? I can't see the puck. That whole business. There's going to be like scrums in front of I can just picture like scrums in front of the net where the puck is not covered, but it's like underneath the goalie, but he doesn't have it covered. He doesn't know where it is. And maybe a whistle's blown in that fracas, and then the puck is poked in at some point in the scrum. There's still going to be a gray area there where, yeah, you're not basing it on if a whistle was blown, but it's still going to be, well, do we think it's covered? Do we think the goalie knows where the puck is? Is he intending on covering it? There's still some gray area there that I think is not resolved by the wording of that rule. But so, like I said, I don't think this is going to change it. There's not going to be a wholesale impact on college hockey as this change, but it's the step in the right direction. So lukewarm thumbs up for me on that
one. One that I am 75% in favor of, and that is in regard to high stick. High stick is no longer the crossbar. It is now the player's shoulders, which I am happy about because, again, I hated crossbar because it was ambiguous anyway, and angles, and you can never tell where the crossbar was in relation to it. Like the camera angle had to be perfect. So that makes a lot of sense to me. They now deem it as shoulder, which I find still a little bit, saying that pucks played at shoulder height would be legal and not whistled is a high stick violation.
This goes for all instances of high sticking, not
Correct.
Just goals.
Not just goals.
This could be the middle of the ice.
Yep.
And a bad pass or a failed shot or something, and someone contacts the puck at shoulder length. See, that's the thing. Like, there's still going to be missed calls, and again, I'm fine with those. But as far as there's still this judgment with the refs, and you're not going to be able to challenge a play like I just described, a mid-ice play where a player plays a puck with a high stick as it's whistled down for high stick, but you can't really tell if it's at shoulder length, and it's the result might be an icing or not. It's not like we're taking a goal off. So the impact is going to be muted in those situations. And you're not going to be able to challenge those because just the result of those is just where is a face off, or you're stopping play rather than keeping going. And so there is a bit of subjectivity still. On the fly, is this player, did he touch it on at shoulder length or lower? It's still going to be a difficult play for referees to make for situations where there are goals that depend on whether or not the player played on a high stick. This should streamline that process because you'd figure that shoulder length to a player is going to be easier to determine versus whatever the length of the height of the crossbar was, and the relation of where that player was to the net and parallax angles and all that kind of thing. So in that sense, I agree. Where's your 25% objection to this rule? You said you're 75% in favor.
Well, basically, I would like high stick allowed anywhere.
Oh, right.
So now we're expanding
I like
it
that.
up.
Yep.
But now it's like I just wouldn't mind it anywhere. But shoulder, I think it's a step in the right direction. And
it's funny because it's
only thing is like, now it's subject on the player's height, which
it's
again
different than 4 feet. Like there's some players like Damon Gardner, the Clarkson transfer, 6'5", put him against Ryan Lash.
Gavin
Ryan
Thorson.
Lash. Yeah, I guess let's keep it current, I suppose, for our Gen Z listener. It'll be easier for, that's Gardner's getting almost 6 feet high off the ice. With skates, maybe closer, like 6.5 feet. Whereas a smaller player, it's kind of like a strike zone in baseball. It's dependent on the height.
Get tall, shrimp. So, but it's overall it's good. I mean, the big thing is that the thing about high stick also that I don't think I've talked about is just the places and the arenas don't have the camera technology to where the freeze frame happens, where you can actually see it. And it's always like this weird mess blur of where the stick actually is and where the puck is. So you might get some instances like that, but at least it's clearer than wherever 4 feet is and the crossbar, when it could happen nowhere near the crossbar. So like I said, step in the right direction there.
Yeah.
Step in the not right direction. To standardize competition, the committee voted to mandate the use of shootout after 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime period. So
for all games,
non-conference,
including non-conference games, which have no pairwise implications
NCAA
whatsoever.
championship selection committees, which again they can't use pairwise as the term because pairwise mimics the NCAA championship selection committee. Have indicated that the shootout will not be part of the selection criteria. So, shootouts on all games now, no matter what.
So you're back to being anti-shootout, because there for a while there you were pro shootout.
Listen to that podcast again. I said if I had my way, yes, I would like, or no, I would. If I had my way, I would eliminate shootouts and bring back ties in general. But if we're going to have shootouts, we might as well have it for something. And to have it for nothing like this is for non-conference games just seems...
because that rant originated from a non-conference shootout.
From a non-conference shootout.
Against Michigan.
Yep. Against Michigan, that meant nothing. But I was caught up in the hype.
It meant something because the fans got something out of it, and the players got something out of it. So
that's true.
It's
maybe that's where I have to go more existential and open with it versus
the benefit is not tangible. But
that's on me. I got to open up my worldview a little bit more.
Yeah,
So.
I don't like shootouts. Again, I understand that there's people that do like them, and I think there's a faction of people who oppose this rule. Again, I don't know what the reaction on the X Machine was on this one or any of the others. You can fill me in if you want, but
I actually didn't
I know,
see a lot of reaction to any of them, but
I know that there is a faction that hate the shootouts and things like the Bean Pot or like in-season tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And this further legislates that, where in-season tournaments will, championship games in in-season tournaments will be decided by shootout, which I don't know if it was this year. One of the last couple of Bean Pots was decided by a shootout. From what I can gather, folks didn't like that. But
yeah, but what was Woden's take on it?
I think it was a, Bill on the Roof tradition. This isn't how we did it. Play till the death. And it's funny that we don't get that worked up about the Milwaukee Kemp's Ice Cream Christmas Classic ending the championship game of that ending in a shootout. But yet the Bean Pot,
the vaunted Bean Pot,
has its tradition behind it. Because of that, we get some grumpies come out, which I am a grumpy. I just don't really give a crap about the Bean Pot. But I know that's one aspect of this that people don't like. With
that. And the last rule change was kind of a big one, in my opinion, kind of a big one, and one that I don't feel should go away, but it is, and that is the double jeopardy. Basically, if you have a delayed penalty and you score on that delayed penalty, you still get a power play. That is no longer going to be the case. It's reverting back to if you score on a delayed penalty, you no longer, that penalty never occurred and you don't get a power play. So I
told you,
I liked that rule. The penalty still happened and the punishment still happened. You shouldn't be rewarded for that. And I think it's a good game change to spark offense and momentum switches. And I liked having the double jeopardy rule, and I'm sad to see this one go.
Yeah, I said before the show, I didn't make it explicit, but I said I got one rant about these rule changes, and this is the rant.
Ooh, all right.
Because I hate this. I much preferred the rule that they had in place, where you still got to keep power play.
Yeah.
You've mentioned kind of a main reason is that, again, this would produce more goals than we talked about the whistling the play dead. Maybe that creates 3 more goals in NCAA. Keeping the power play after a delayed penalty goal results in more goals than 3. But I'm always surprised. Like last year, I know St. Cloud got, 4 or 5 of these throughout the year, maybe last 3 or 4. I don't think they scored in any of the subsequent power plays. It's one of those ones where you think after you scored, you get the delayed penalty, you're like, yes, all right, we got another one coming up here. Even more so than a regular delayed penalty that doesn't result in a goal. I almost feel like it is like an extra momentum boost. You kind of think another one's coming. And no, it's like any other power play. It's, about 20% of the time.
About 20% of the time, yeah.
Which is obviously more than 3 goals across the country if you add them all up. It's going to be more than that, but that's the main result here, is that it's just more offense. And my big thing is, like, what I hated, the McMahon's rationale, which I'm sure a lot of coaches cited as far as why they went back to the old rule, which is also the NHL rule. The other one was it the hand pass that you're talking about, where they said in the rule change to bring it in line with the NHL rule.
Yep.
This was another one where they cited we want to keep it consistent with the NHL. And I hate that rationale of we need to do whatever the NHL does. This is a lot of, I think, behind the shootouts is because this is what the NHL does. And now we're a serious feeder league for the NHL. And if we're a prospect league, we got to prepare the prospects to play in the next level, which I think is overhyped to begin with. To say nothing about the increase in the amount of NCAA presence there are in the NHL these days. I like the differing rules. I think I like the being unique in NCAA, and that should be the worst. That should be a non-reason. If you want to make this rule change, you can have it on other grounds. I don't think the impetus should be we got to just follow whatever the NHL does. And so I don't like that aspect of it mainly. And like you said, that the big thing is it's not like if we are going to try to mimic the NHL in all that we do, this doesn't really have an effect on gameplay itself. It's not like a major difference between, and I wouldn't be opposed to this, but if NCAA did overtimes differently than the NHL did, let's say the NCAA never did any 3-on-3 for any of their gameplay, obviously overtimes being the main part of where you're going to see 3-on-3. You can make the argument, if you're going to stick to we got to do whatever the NHL does, that you're putting NCAA players at a disadvantage by not giving them the practice at 3-on-3. In this case, though, what you're doing is you're just creating another power play. It's not like this is going to screw you up in a developmental sense, the fact that you have to play more power play time during your game, or conversely more penalty kill time if you've got to kill an additional power play during the game. There's no inherent difference in the game if you're just adding a power play. And as a result, you're just adding more offense in a sport like college hockey that could use the more eyeballs and use the more interest. Offense generally is the recipe to gain more interest. So I don't like that aspect of it either. Look at other sports. Look at the difference between NCAA football and NFL football. It's a lot of major rule changes between differences between those two sports. Pass interference is limited to 15 yards in NCAA.
1 foot in bounds.
1 foot in bounds. Overtime rules. I mean, there's ties in the NFL. There's no, we put the ball at the 25-yard line, which like that in and of itself is that's like a huge gameplay difference between the pros and college. You're going to try to apply that to NHL. NCAA would be like, oh, we can't do that because that's night and day difference. Basketball. I mean, you've got the 3-point line is a different distance from NCAA to NBA. The shot clock is like 7 seconds longer, which again is one of those like major gameplay differences. You think that making the jump from NCAA basketball to the NBA, needing to make your shots 7 seconds before 6 seconds, I think it's 30 seconds in NCAA and 24 in the NBA.
Yeah,
that's a major like gameplay difference that you think that would have much more of a learning curve to have to jump to than whatever the differences between NHL and college hockey are now. College baseball uses a aluminum bat, for God's sakes, instead of a wooden bat. These are major differences in all three of those sports, and the college version of those sports are all way more popular than college hockey is. Part of that is just hockey is not as popular as those three sports in general. But you'd think that of the four sports that I just mentioned, hockey should be the one that shouldn't be married so much to the pro version. It should be trying to expand, do things a little bit differently. Like the main differences between NCAA and NHL at this point is really all safety rule changes, full visors or full cages.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got like, I guess one of the main differences now is like throwing the puck into the stands is a penalty in NHL and it's not in college.
Which I'm surprised that.
Like, what are tell me some other differences in like no fighting. It's another safety bound rule for NCAA. Fighting is, I guess it's not like illegal. You're just going to get kicked out of the game if you engage in fights. And because of that, fights are exceedingly rare in college hockey. But what, like, another difference, which is shrinking literally, by the year is the ice size is not exactly uniform. It's not dictated in the rule book that every rink has to be the same length and width. But that's changing, and St. Cloud is one of the few that still are outliers, no pun intended in that regard. There's just not a ton of difference between the two sports, and the keeping the double jeopardy rule in place, it's again not like a wholesale change like the other changes I mentioned with the other sports, but this is just another little quirk that I kind of liked, and I was like, I'd like the NHL to copy that instead of the other way around.
Well,
But
and then not only that, the PWHL has been praised for having a jailbreak rule. Whereas if you score a goal shorthanded, that negates the power play. That ends the power play.
Right.
They've been praised for that, and the fans have loved it. And
I like those kind of. I like that sort of creativity in terms of willing to. And again, it's not like playing with 7 players on the ice. It's not like this giant rule change.
Bring back the rover.
It's just a small little tweak. And I don't, it's not messing with anybody's development from the gameplay of hockey standpoint.
Yeah.
All it is just an extra added feature. And just don't play copycat with the NHL. That's I think the dumbest rationale behind any of these rule changes. Be yourself. And look at you in comparison to the other NCAA sports even. You're not top half of the conference here. So innovate. Be unique. That's my rant.
And then who knows? Maybe NHL will pick up on some of that as well. And then and they'll be like, hey, they've tested that in the college game and it's worked out really well. So I don't know. Innovation is good, and like these types of changes, I think is good. And like you said, it doesn't really affect the development or the, I don't know, the whole aspect of that you have to mirror the NHL. So I'm right with you on that one, and I'm kind of sad to see this one go.
And we did mention too before the show, we got that pairwise tweak, and Chris Mayotte, number one fan of this one.
Yep, exactly.
This rule strips away the home road waiting for playoff series, or playoff games that have home ice, so non-neutral site conference playoff games.
Yep. So the first round for the NCHC, all rounds for the CCHA and the Big Ten, where they're played in a home rink.
And Atlantic. Atlantic. That was all. And it will be the NCHC starting next year.
Yep, exactly. So,
but those will all be counted as if they were all at the X.
Yep.
There won't be any waiting because it's the 80%. If you're at home, a win counts as 80% of a full win. And if you're on the road, it's 120% of a win. That's what the home road split for the regular season is. But now for the playoffs, because Mayotte complained that because CC got 4th, got home ice, and was able to host a playoff series, and then lost that playoff series at home to a team lower than them in the standings in Omaha, that's what screwed them in making the NCAAs. Which at the time I said, you got the advantage of being the home team, which gives you a better leg up on beating Omaha. Wouldn't you have rather played Omaha at home than on the road? Yes? Okay, well then you'll have a better chance of beating Omaha at home than on the road. He would won the series against Omaha, they probably would have made the tournament. I think he's getting this backwards. More of the problem was he played 7 home games in his non-conference schedule versus 3 road games. that I think screwed him more. And we did see some more evidence where they apparently backed out of a series with Michigan State. Wondering if that figures into any of this thinking for Matt. But from his perspective he thinks that the home team's getting penalized for gaining the home ice advantage in a home playoff series. At the same time, isn't it kind of sucky that the road team, if they were to win games in the playoffs, they don't count, as they say, as a bonus that they did in the regular season? But when it doesn't really work both ways. You're kind of penalizing the road team for winning on the road, and you're not getting the same benefit that they had been getting all season for a road win. So we've talked about, I'm fine with maybe lowering that pairwise bump for home road splits, like make it 10% instead of 20%. I'm for like tweaking that. I'm just not sure this is the best solution. And I think it's a short-sighted change based on one salty team's experience this last year. Like, I could see that Mayotte gets 5th place this next year, goes on the road to Omaha, loses that series, and says, God, we won that second game, and we would have had if we would have been able to get some extra pairwise points for a road. You know how hard it is to win on the road in the playoffs, don't you? I could see this flipping back if the shoe was on the other foot.
This is the classic solving a problem that didn't exist situation. like this is only a problem because you lost 2 games at home to a team that hasn't seen a postseason tournament in a neutral site since the Bush administration. Like that's you. That's on you. I'm sorry. Like, you don't sit and blame that you lost on the bubble, because guess what? Your team just wasn't good enough is what it comes down to. And that sucks. That sucks that happens. So,
or if you would have gone out of the state of Colorado more than once in his non-conference schedule.
And again, not doing it to Michigan. So
Michigan State
state of Michigan. So
yeah, but hey, we got he earned a Herbie for Foot and Mouth Award because of that rant. So maybe we should hope that we're going to get some, like I said, like shoe on the other foot and mouth next year.
I was going to ask you, did you get any DMCA notice in the email?
I haven't.
So, okay, all right, good.
I haven't checked the email, and you're making me curious that I should, because we might be... Gary was going to email me back for St. Cloud. I got to see if I got to maybe respond there. I've been shirking my duties. But I did not. But like I said, I haven't checked in a while, but fingers crossed, I haven't gotten any takedown or music notice yet.
So those were all of the rule changes that are made. So we're with these rule changes for the next 2 years before the next lineup.
We'll see how quickly we turn against them.
Oh yeah, I assume 90% of them will turn against. We'll get screwed over by a continuous play rule, and then and then reviews will just be crazy. We'll just
It's all be in the first half of the year, because that's when they really crack down, and they sort of let it go in the second half. I know there was maybe discussion about it, but apparently they didn't make the rule change about. There was rumors that they were going to tweak again the face-off rule.
Yep.
Where.
Yeah, I didn't see any.
They were gonna reinstitute the rule where you kick the guy out, another guy gets to take the draw, which they got rid of for this rule where they will call a penalty for delay a game if the same guy has 2 face-off infractions. Which again, this gives more power to the linesman.
Which is the last thing I want, is linesmen to have more power.
So maybe we ducked a bullet there, because they could have made that change. Again, I guess they would have had to consult the NHL rule book because that's their main guiding principle.
That's at the end what they want to be anyway. So, questions. Guest of the show, Jake Baskin. Is it as weird to you as it is to me that we have late term departures from programs of head coaches that almost never willingly leave Division I jobs? And yeah, it's, like I said, I totally forgot about all the head coaching switches when it comes to college hockey, and to have, especially the kind of the big changes with the whole Cornell situation in Northern Michigan, and all of that kind of influx is really bizarre to have that in June. And yeah, I totally agree with Jake on that. Can we get rid of offside review? Oh, how I would love to.
Get rid of all reviews. That is the official stance of me on this show.
It's just, I just think, especially with offsides, if it doesn't give a distinct advantage, it's not worth getting rid of a goal. And that's where I can blame Matt Duchene in that aspect of it. Because, again, that started in the NHL when Duchene was about 4 feet offsides and the refs missed it and scored a goal. They said, we can't have that. And then now it's fuzzy stills at fraction of an inches, and that's what we're going to use to dissect. So
yeah, and like we've joked about, it might have to be how we get a change there is that the NHL first changes it.
Yeah.
And then the NCAA would play copycat, which it seems like, I mentioned this in some show this season, but McDavid, I think, came out vocally saying that they should get rid of the offsides reviews. I mean, so some star players have staked their claim, at least one. I'm not sure if others. You mentioned, like, I barely watched much of the PWHL. I didn't watch hardly any NHL this year either. But I have watched some of the playoffs, at least the first round. But I know that there was some groundswell of players that were commenting that they think that gone a little too far in these offside reviews. And if that's the case, we're seeing that the NCAA likes to take their cues from the NHL. So that's likely probably how it's gonna come down.
It's gonna have to shape up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Dave Jacobson, what did you think about the Nintendo Direct? So Nintendo had their announcements for the games, and I said right beforehand, I said this is the only time I do not want to hear about the next Metroid Prime game. And sure enough, I get a full trailer for the full teaser for the next Metroid Prime game that has been in development for the past 6 years. And I wanted info so bad, but now we're at the end of the Switch's life cycle. So I'm like, push it back to the next system still to, be on the next, high powered system or higher powered system at least. Nope. It's going to be on the life cycle at the end of the console. And I'm just a little bit frustrated about that. But everything else about the Direct looked good. I was excited to see the next Legend of Zelda game, where you actually take control of Zelda. I wish you put some type of weapon in her hand instead of a rod that just kind of creates things. I get where they're going with it, but I'm just kind of a little bit bummed by it. I mean, Cadence of Hyrule, she had the magical staff and she was able to whip, that was just awesome to play that. And I'm excited to do that, but I think a lot of people are still going to be really creative in how to solve puzzles, and it'll be really interesting. So and that's a fun art style too. So that's kind of my main takeaways for the Nintendo Direct. Any thoughts about the Nintendo Direct?
Give me like a 7-word definition of what Nintendo Direct is.
Sure enough.
I don't even know what that is.
A couple times a year, Nintendo would have
7 words. Real brief.
Real brief. Okay.
Is it like another console?
Like video, 40-minute video previewing upcoming games, announcements of upcoming games.
Okay, so
See,
when
I'm
you
gonna
said
need more
the-
words.
when he said the Nintendo Switch, I thought
Sure.
I thought this was like a Nintendo Switch is like a handheld version.
Well, it's like it's a hybrid, so you can dock it and you play it on your TV, but you
Oh,
can
yeah,
also
yeah,
pick it up and play it on the go.
So I thought it was going to be a successor to that.
Not
This
yet.
is
That has not
not-
been announced. Rumors are saying that they're going to announce what the successor is soon.
So Nintendo Direct isn't something where you can play games off.
No.
It's just
Nintendo
like
Direct is like a press
PR
conference.
service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it sounded like when you mentioned that, it made it sound like some early 2000s like mail-based subscription, like
Oh.
Netflix. Like that's what they would call it, Nintendo Direct to your mailbox. That's what I thought that sounded like. But like, well, they're not doing that these days.
No.
So I needed a little clarification on what the
Gotcha.
hell you're talking about. But thank you.
No, it's just a video preview, like making game announcements and trailers, and here's what's
It's
coming.
A hype machine.
It's a hype machine.
I like that.
Here's what's coming
I'm
up,
for it.
and we're
I'm-
directly giving it to you, which is why they call it a direct.
Well, in that case, I am all for it.
You're all for Nintendo Directs in general, or everything that was announced in this one?
I'm for it, and I'm awaiting the sequel, Nintendo Direct Plus.
It would probably be the new Nintendo Direct Plus HD. Is probably what they would.
All of
some
that, and then with a little
stupid name.
TM at the
Yeah,
top.
exactly. The Super Switch is what they.
I think you're onto something.
So, but it's like, I mean, at this point, just put Metroid Prime on the new system. So now the sliver of hope is that it did just say 2025 is a release window. So maybe if the new the successor to the Switch gets released at that time, it'll be on both systems. They've done that in the past with Breath of the Wild.
Of course.
So
Forget.
Although, Zelda is a much bigger system seller than Metroid Prime is. So.
True. That's a good point.
Exactly. I love your feigning interest, and that's nice. So
No, this is 100% genuine.
well, that about does it. This episode.
That
was me essentially just talking to Dan Jacobson, actually. So, who might be in the line for the women's job is something I made up just now. So,
and yeah, because we've mentioned his exploits in terms of connections. He was our source for JoJo Chobak's return. He's got the wheels in motion, and he's got some connections with some very important people. Just circle that name.
Yep, exactly. So, I'm Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers on the X Machine. Andrew, you can find him at
Andrew at greenground.net. Always looking for some new posts.
And under the
over
DMCA violations at
emails over at Huskies hockeypodcast at gmail.com. Gary, I haven't been forgetting you. I've just forgot. So yeah, send me an email.
Not forgetting, I just forgot. I like that.
Yeah, I didn't forget. It just slipped my mind. But send me an email. That same goes for sponsorship opportunities. We've got some summer pods, and if I was good enough in monitoring that email, we might have had a sponsor today, but I dropped the ball.
Oh, we'll give him two. We'll give him two for the next two episodes.
Make it up to you guys.
There we go.
Let's hopefully get some sponsors. So yeah, send me an email or a post over at Green Road.
So perfect. Until next time, go Huskies. Woo!